they don't say it, but the whole metaphor and so on, to cut a long story short, working class are those idiot, fundamentalist, patriarchal, who beat their wives and so on and so on. There is, and okay, there are many who are much better, but they are rare. The ones who, you know, really do questions about exploitation of Mexican workers, immigrant Spanish women, who really connect the two. But even there, I don't like this culturalist bias. How American cultural studies, how should I put it, automatically transform a problem of race, intolerance, racism, into a cultural problem. You would have thought that Americans exploit Mexican immigrant workers because they don't tolerate their cultural otherness or whatever. For me, it's exactly the other way around, and so on and so on. You know, this is what I don't like there. And it's the same again with, you know, feminism. You do know it was marginal, I know, but nonetheless, how? Feminism was even incorporated into the justification of the American attack on Iraq, no, or Afghanistan especially. We go there to liberate women from, and as it is always the case, the result was the opposite one. Whatever you say about Saddam Hussein's Iran, and it was a horrible regime, I'm totally opposed to it. Iraq. But nonetheless, you know that under Saddam, the situation of women was far better than in the majority of other Arab countries, because only at the end, for political reasons, Saddam started to flirt with Islam. Before, he had a kind of a secularist pan-Arab nationalist modernism as ideology. He created in the first 10 years of his rule a very strong secular middle class, doctors and so on. And the paradox is that the main social result till now of the American occupation is, in this naive liberal sense, big regression. Iraq is now, after they went there to liberate women and so on, a much more religiously fundamentalist country than it was before. So again, I'm not in any way, I claim, a class fundamentalist. If anything, I precisely showed how we cannot any longer speak about the old type class exploitation, because why not? Let me give you an extremely simple, provocative example. If you define working class as being exploited in the strict Marxist terms, and also at the same time accept that labor is the only source of value, then I'm sorry to tell you, you have to accept that Chavez Venezuela is exploiting United States. Because they are, basically Chavez does what he does because he has oil. Oil for Marx is not a source of value. I'm not saying, of course, claiming this. I'm claiming we have very radically to rethink Marx. Things are happening today in the functioning of capitalism, and I'm even very modest here. You know, we have all these journalistic phrases, postmodern capitalism, post-industrial society, whatever. I don't like these post-theories. I claim these are mostly, even if they are interesting journalistic cliches, we don't yet have a real good theory of what goes on today in the world. It's as simple as that. We need theory more than ever. Okay, now I'm making propaganda for...
In your argument, after you said, do not personalize the enemy as one of the current strategy to deal with the new capitalism, you said of the incredible amount of money China invests in USA. And you said, this is how the US survives now. Now that US need $1 billion per day. Huge part of US economy is owned by Chinese, and you again said Saudi Arabia is catching up. My question is, see, look at us. Asians have no such Western or European fear of China or KSA owning up US or Western assets. Now that maybe the boot is in our legs. But Europeans have this fear of their cream economic assets owned by outsiders. Anyway, you are a radical leftist. So, aren't you as a normal European, not as a radical leftist, as a normal European, betraying a European Eurocentric bias and fear of the non-European, like the yellow peril, isn't it your unconscious Eurocentrism is coming forth unconsciously, isn't it?
First, how should I put it? Now I will say something which may shock you, but my Eurocentrism is not unconscious. I even wrote a text precisely to provoke all my enemies and friends, shamelessly entitled A Plea for Radical Eurocentrism, and so on. Because I claim that how should I put it? I will say now something very provocative. I think that European project of enlightenment and so on is self-contradictory in the sense of it's not the whole truth about European enlightenment to say, yes, it's universality, it's a false one, it's only a mask for particular European interests and so on and so on. What you have to admit is also that, how should I put it, European enlightenment was always strong enough to the way one should, you have to admit that European enlightenment was always strong enough to mercilessly criticize itself. And this you have to admit to Europe, that it had so-called cultural imperialism and so on, but this idea that, for example, the idea that Europe is not the center, Europe is just one among other cultures, that every life world, every culture is ultimately contingent. It doesn't, that, how should I put it, a particular life world is not a category of truth. That you should experience your own life world as something contingent, ridiculous. I like this idea. I think this is the only way to respect each other. Not just to respect each other, but to make fun of ourselves to each other. I never liked this polite multicultural, and I'm not kidding here. It's terribly serious what I'm saying. I'm always suspicious of this UNESCO respect, you know. Oh, how great is your culture. I like, don't be shocked, I will immediately explain what I mean. I like racist jokes, but not use them in the racist way. In my country, ex-Yugoslavia, we were all the time telling dirty racist jokes. They were the best thing to keep us together as friends, because they were not jokes against each other. I met a Serb or a Montenegro guy, and we joyously accepted, assumed racist cliches about ourselves and made fun about it. For example, one of the republics of ex-Yugoslavia was Montenegro, the small one. Their racist cliche is that they are lazy, absolutely lazy. At the same time, you should know you get earthquakes in Montenegro. So I met recently a Montenegro guy who told me, now I discovered, you know how we masturbate in Montenegro?